During the 1996 Olympic Games, NBC television presented a segment about a gymnastics coach from Romania. Here was a man who for the past 15 years had lived alone in a tiny dormitory room in that communist-ravaged country. True, some of the athletic training equipment might have been up to Olympic standards, but surely in many other ways he and his young athletes had lived and existed in painfully deprived surroundings for all of those years. Communist-ravaged Romania. Try to imagine his feelings when he flew into Hartfield International Airport in Atlanta. Gleaming malls and escalators and a huge freeway system, crowded. Grocery stores and restaurants with buffet lines groaning under the weight of culinary abundance. How must he have felt to see all of the splendor here in the West, the abundance, the extravagance? Jeannie and I have been to Russia and Ukraine. Just after the huge wall was broken, we've seen the long lines with people waiting for one loaf of bread for hours. So imagine his poignant thoughts, especially as you think of their Romanian planes then returning to Bucharest's Oktopeni Airport or Sheremetyevo Airport in Moscow. After 2 weeks of virtual paradise, many athletes then resumed life amid the gray buildings and the Spartan meals back home. The contrast of those two images takes us back to 1 Corinthians chapter 2 and verse 9. No eye has seen, no ear has heard, no mind has conceived what God has prepared for those who love him. The stately King James Version reads, neither have entered into the heart of man the things which God hath prepared for them that love him. Back in John chapter 14 verse 2, Jesus talked to his disciples about preparing something. In my Father's house are many rooms. I am going there to prepare a place for you. I love to link the two concepts together. Right at this very moment, Jesus is in heaven preparing a place for you, getting it ready with you in mind. He's adding all the divine touches that are so thoughtful, so perfect, so intimately created to meet your every wish, dream, and whim. Paul comes along and tells us that whoever you are, you can't even begin to imagine what's going to be at heaven, what it's going to be like. Eyes can't see it, ears have never heard it, and imaginations have never adequately pictured it. The late religious artist Harry Anderson painted many beautiful pictures that tried to portray heaven. Jean and I met him once at his New England studio, a truly gifted artist. But Harry Anderson would be the first to confess that this verse almost doomed his efforts. Even in his greatest masterpieces, his most painstaking projects, when he wrote his name in the corner and then put his brush away, Harry Anderson, he knew that heaven was going to far surpass what he'd painted. I'm sure the Romanian gymnastics team had a mental picture of the USA before they got there. They'd seen subtitled John Wayne movies in the theaters of Bucharest. And who knows, maybe they could get Hawaii Five-0 and old reruns of gorgeous Hallmark movies on Romanian television. But still, they might well have said to themselves when they checked into the Olympic Village and saw the skyscrapers, well, this beats all that we could have ever imagined. And where's Oprah Winfrey and Madonna? For sure, we want to meet her. It's always interesting to take a familiar passage and ask ourselves, is there still more meaning to the words? With 1 Corinthians 2 verse 9, most Christians, almost in an autopilot kind of way, say to themselves, well, that's about heaven. Eye hath not seen, nor ear heard. And that's telling us heaven will be wonderful, beyond our wild imaginations. End of discussion. But Could the verse mean more than just joy in the sky by and by? As we look at the surrounding passages for the context, I really do think so. In verses 6 to 8, Paul talks about how the Christian message has a kind of hidden wisdom. The wise people of this age don't understand it, Paul writes. Verse 8, the gospel is a secret wisdom, a hidden treasure. In fact, he adds, none of the rulers of this age understand it, for if they had, they would not have crucified the Lord of glory. Now, right after the 3 verses about the hidden beauty of the cross, Paul tells us our eyes and ears and imaginations have never fully grasped what God has prepared for his people. Isn't it possible that he is talking about much more than just heavenly thrones and streets of gold? Commenting on verse 9, the text notes of one NIV study Bible state, what God has prepared, probably not to be limited to either present or future blessing, both are involved. Now, let me ask you this. Is the Christian faith a present blessing to you right now, today, this very moment? Has God prepared for you a gift for this moment? A gift that we call grace? Do you fully grasp that gift? Do you fully understand it completely? Has your mind taken it in all of its depth? If it has, you're the first human to accomplish that. I tend to agree more with former slave ship captain and later Christian songwriter John Newton, who penned in 1779, when we've been there 10,000 years, bright shining as the sun, we've no less days to sing God's praise than when we'd first begun. What else has God done for us that outstrips our imaginative abilities? What present blessings that is. In the Seventh-day Adventist Bible commentary on 1 Corinthians 2:9, the authors write on the phrase, the things which God hath prepared. I'm quoting, whatever God has planned for his people is included in this comprehensive word. In its primary application, the statement deals with all that is provided through the gospel for the welfare and happiness of God's people while here on earth. This relates to forgiveness of sins, justification, and sanctification, the joy and peace that the grace of God imparts to the believer, and his ultimate deliverance from this evil world. End of quote. Think about just one part of that. What it means to be forgiven. Frankly, it just hasn't entered our hearts what that means. We can't comprehend that the truth, that all of our sins, our mistakes, our faults have been wiped away. Not just off the books down at the county sheriff's office, but in a universal sense. Even more than that, God's forgiven us for the fact that our inner natures are twisted and evil. He has completely erased the slate. Oh, sure, we understand that concept in theory, but to grasp the enormity of how it happened, the reality of Calvary, and the implications for our future, we have to admit that our eyes haven't really seen it, our ears haven't heard it, and our imaginations aren't capable of picturing the scope of the cross of Jesus. I hope as you study God's goodness in your life that you're coming to the same conclusion. For a brief moment now, though, think about heaven once again. Our sin-stained imaginations are so pathetically incapable of envisioning what God has for us there. We're going to be greatly embarrassed on that first day in heaven as we stroll down the Golden Avenue, like it says in the gospel song. It's so much greater than we thought, we exclaim. Not just that first day, but for the next 10,000 and 10 billion years. An old sci-fi movie by Stanley Kubrick entitled 2001: A Space Odyssey. It had a complicated and mysterious theme that even die-hard fans don't understand after watching it 30 or 40 times. At the very end of the film, when the astronaut newborn space infant is taken to a kind of paradise, the camera pans to show that a place has been prepared for him. It's a kind of mansion, and those who got it really recreated some of the earthly things that its new visitor would most identify with and understand. Books from the right era, familiar paintings, and other little finishing touches. Friend, when we get to heaven, I frankly don't really want to see anything earthly to remind us of what we had down here on our dirty little planet. But the idea that someone is up there right now thinking about E. Lonnie Melashenko and preparing with his own nail-scarred hands for my arrival, well, it'd be great to go home right now, wouldn't it?